Hey everybody, hope you're having a good day. John Lynn here with Hugo Coffee Roasters, and we are going to talk about the AeroPress. The AeroPress is fairly new to me. I only picked this up a couple weeks ago. I've been doing some experimenting, and I have to say I really like it. It's really impressive to me for a number of different reasons. Number one, it's great for traveling. You know, if you're camping, if you're in the car, you don't want to drink hotel coffee, different things like that. It's easily compactable, it's fairly light, and they claim it's pretty much indestructible. So definitely some cool pluses for that. Got a chance to try it in the backcountry, made great coffee out there. So really cool little way to brew coffee. Another thing I really like about the AeroPress is how multifunctional it can be. How many different ways can I brew coffee? I can, make a really strong, concentrated espresso style brew in this. It's not exactly the same as espresso, but something that is pretty palatable, something that I really liked, and you could definitely mix with milk and have your own little latte at your house. As well as, you can do, there's so many different ways, so many different recipes. Today, I'm going to talk about two different recipes. We're going to start with what they call the inverted method. I've learned is what it's called. And basically, instead of brewing like AeroPress recommends and how their little brew guide works when you open the box, when you open that up, we're going to flip it upside down and we're going to brew like this. And the main reason that I really like doing this inverted style is because once you get your little filter on here and you get your coffee and water in there, it starts dripping out the bottom pretty quickly. And what you need to do is pop this top on here to create a vacuum so that it doesn't drip. But it can be a little finicky. You lose some coffee. I have found that I much prefer just to do it upside down. And then when you start, your bottom's already in there. There's nowhere the coffee or the water can go. So that's how we're going to brew our AeroPress today. First thing you're going to want to do, get some hot water. You're going to rinse this out, kind of pre-warm everything, and I'll show you how to do that. We're going to get some hot water in our kettle, just right off boiling. I'm going to throw a little bit of water in my coffee cup, just so we can make sure that our coffee cup is nice and warm and we're ready to pour that coffee in there. Don't lose any heat. I'm also going to go ahead and do a little rinse in here, get any dust particles that may be in there, or any coffee grounds that might be in there, and just to kind of heat this up a little bit so it's not taking heat out of our coffee once again. We have our little brew basket right here. Not sure if you guys can see this. Black, made of plastic, some fairly large holes in there. And then AeroPress has their own custom little paper filters right here. So we're gonna just set that paper filter right inside this little kind of brew basket thing. I'm gonna take our hot water and we're just gonna go ahead and rinse that paper. Just like with any kind of brew method you do, any sort of pour over, any filtered brew method, we really want to rinse that paper off just to get that kind of paper taste out of there, so we're getting all the coffee flavor and not that paper flavor. Okay? That water out of there. Now what we're going to do is weigh out our coffee. For this recipe, we're going to use 200 grams of water. We're going to use 16 grams of coffee, which is giving us a 12 and a half to 1 ratio, water to coffee ratio. So we're going to take some of our Hugo coffee right here. Going to go ahead and get 16 grams. Oops, a little too much. Okay. And the coffee we're using today is a new coffee from Hugo Coffee Roasters. It's a coffee from Honduras. It's a honey process. It's really sweet, kind of tangy coffee, real fruity, kind of got some pineapple acidity in there. A coffee that I've really been liking lately. So that's what we're going to be using. I'm going to go ahead and grind this up. Smells great. Now there's so many different ways to, like I was saying, to use and to make coffee with the AeroPress. There's ways you can make kind of a concentrate and add water after, which is something that's kind of cool if you need a little bit larger cup of coffee, because this really only does produce about an 8 to 10 ounce cup of coffee. So a lot of people do like to do that. There's different ways you can grind your coffee, but for this recipe we're going to go ahead and use a slightly finer grind, nowhere near espresso, something close to what you would use for a V60. So it's going to be in between kind of an espresso and a drip grind, leaning a little closer to drip than espresso, so kind of a finer grind. We're going to go ahead and pour our coffee right into our AeroPress. And I like to give it a little shake, kind of flatten that coffee out. And then what we're going to do is pour 200 grams of water into our AeroPress. And we're going to start our timer as soon as we start pouring. Now you kind of want to do little circles. You want to get as much of that coffee saturated as you possibly can. And there is our 200. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and give this a little stir. I've noticed that there can be clumps of coffee at the bottom of this, so it's really important to give it a stir right off the bat. And now it's a little bit of a waiting game. So what I'm going to do is wait until about a minute in, then I'm going to give it another little stir. So any of those grounds that have kind of come up to the top, I can stir those up, get those mixed back in with the coffee. And we're getting close, about 5 seconds away, 2, 1. Gonna do another quick stir there. And now we've got a 1 minute wait time. So what we're gonna do is, from the moment we pour this first drop of water it's gonna take 2 minutes until we are gonna flip this over and start plunging it into our cup. So at this point, we can take our paper filter that's been pre-wet and is inside of our little basket here. We will go ahead and set this on top. There's little grooves. You can set it in there and turn so it fits nicely. And I'm gonna go ahead and get that hot water out of my cup so that I am ready to brew. We're about 15 seconds out. When we plunge, we want to plunge a little bit slower. We don't really want to force it, just kind of a nice and slow plunge. For me, it takes about 30 seconds. So from the time I first pour water to when I'm done plunging this, it takes about 2.5 minutes. So we're at the 2 minute mark. I'm going to go ahead and flip this, and we're going to start our plunge. And we're just slowly, steadily pushing this down. And you'll know when all the coffee is out of there because you'll hear a little tss, and that is air pushing through instead of water. So at that point, we know that we're done right at 2:30. And we've got our great little AeroPress cup of coffee here. Now it's a little hot. I like to let mine sit for a minute or two. It's just off boil when we start brewing. It's only a 2 minute brew time, so that water is still pretty hot. So we're gonna wanna let that sit, kind of hang out for a bit before we start drinking it. So number one, we don't burn our tongue. Number two, so we can actually taste the coffee. Coffee that's too hot, you can't really taste. We wanna let that cool down just a little bit. But while we're waiting, I'm gonna show you guys another way to make coffee in the AeroPress. Now, like I was saying, as I've been doing research and trying things out, there are tons of ways to make a good cup of coffee in this. You can make an espresso, you can make that concentrate I was talking about. There's different coffee to water ratios, there's different grind settings you can use. So really kind of the world is your oyster here on this one. There's not a lot of right and wrong here. As long as the coffee tastes good to you, you're doing good. Another cool thing about the AeroPress cleanup is a breeze. So all we're gonna do is take this over the garbage can and push that plunger down a little bit. And it pops off that coffee just like a puck of espresso. So it just pops right off and you're ready to go for your next cup. What I like to do is just rinse off any little grinds that might be on there before I start my next brew. Sorry for the loud noises. There seems to be a truck outside. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it, but it's loud in here. Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and do another inverted method. So we'll set our AeroPress upside down just as we did before. And we're gonna get our coffee ready. Now this time, we're gonna be making a really strong cup of coffee. We're gonna be doing an espresso type brew. One second. Hey, Blaine, would you shut that garage for me just so we can get those noises out? Thank you. Sorry for the interruption, folks. We're going to be making an espresso here, something that you can mix with water to make an Americano at home, or milk for a latte, or just drink as is. Now, it's not going to be exactly like an espresso, but if you really want an espresso and you're at home, this is a great way to do it. You can make something that's really tasty. What I like to do is start with 20 grams of coffee. So we're going to go ahead. Oops, you're probably going to need to tear that out first. There we go. We're going to get our 20 grams of coffee. There we go. And we are going to grind this very fine, just as fine as you would on an espresso. So, as you guys know, if you've watched the other videos, I really like to use the Baratza Encore. It's a great home grinder. Does a really good job, cafe quality, burr grinder, and it's affordable. It's something that anyone can have. On the Baratza Encore, I'm grinding this on a setting that's a 6, so very fine. While we're waiting for that to grind, I'm going to go ahead and let this heat up a little bit. Oh, and I seem to have forgotten a cup for espresso, so I'll be right back. Okay. So we're going to make sure our cup is nice and warm. I'm going to go ahead and get some fresh water to make sure it's still nice and hot. And we've got our espresso right here. Go ahead and get rid of this water. Going to take that paper filter, set it inside our little filter basket, and pre-wet this, rinse that filter out real good. Okay, so on this ratio, we are going to use, there we go, phone's dying. On this ratio, we're going to be using a 3-to-1 water to coffee ratio. So we're doing 20 grams of coffee. So we're going to do 60 grams of water. So I'm going to go ahead, get all my coffee in there. I like to make sure that's nice and level. And on this one, I'm going to dump this water out of my cup a little bit early. because it's a much faster brew method. Now we're going to start our timer as soon as we start pouring water in, and we're going for 60 grams of water. There we are. As quickly as we can, we're going to want to come in here and stir, get all those dry clumps off the bottom. Make sure all those grounds are saturated. Then we're going to go ahead and pop our brew basket right back on top here. So we are ready to go as soon as this is. At 45 seconds, we're going to go ahead and take this, flip it into our cup, and we're going to start our plunge. Now this plunge is going to be have a little bit more resistance to it since our grind setting is much finer. So just go nice and slow until you hear that air pushing out the bottom. There we are. And then I like to be, fancy and transfer it to my espresso cup. So now we've made our little baby espresso here. Like I said, you can use to make an Americano or latte or drink as is, macchiato, whatever you want to do. It tastes great. And at this time, our first cup is ready to go. Really nice, really delicious coffee. Go ahead and give this a taste. Wow, really good stuff. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned a thing or two. And if you don't already have one, I do recommend picking one of these up. It's great to throw in your car. You're going to go on a little motorcycle trip or go backpacking, whatever you want to do. Great option that can make great coffee a bunch of different ways. Really appreciate you guys tuning in, and have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.